On this Monday night, relief and devastation in British Columbia's interior. The battle in the Shuswap intensifies as the scale of destruction is slowly assessed.
We're not done yet, and the most damaged neighborhoods are still to come.
The call from small communities to send help. Soaked and shaken.
This was all water like a lake.
Millions of Americans clean up after a record deluge and an earthquake. The retreat after the shuffle, how the Prime Minister is looking to reset and what it could mean for his future. Plus, charting a new, cleaner course for shipping with old technology.
It is kind of back to the future.
The maiden voyage looking to lower emissions and costs on the high seas.
Global National with Donna Friesen.
Good evening and thanks for joining us. It is now becoming clear what has burned to the ground in British Columbia, a province still in a state of emergency and still in the midst of the worst wildfire season on record. It is a little cooler today. The winds have died down, but the threat remains. Evacuation orders are in place for about 27,000 people across BC. More than 380 fires are burning. 160 of them are out of control, including the McDougall Creek fire near Kelowna. Crews were able to get into West Kelowna and say at least 50 buildings are partially or fully destroyed, and that's an early assessment. The most damaged neighborhoods still have to be inspected. Further north in the Shuswap region, the situation is dire. Several communities are being threatened by a sprawling fire that's 410 square kilometers in size. The fire has already destroyed multiple homes, and people are trying to help their neighbors in any way they can. Elissa Carpenter reports.
We're here to pick up a bunch of food.
When the call for help went out on social media, Mark Taggart wasn't sure how many would answer it. Dozens showed up early in the morning, arriving by boat, by truck, and on foot, mobilizing in this parking lot in Blind Bay.
We worked through all the rules and the CSRD and all the first responders over there. We are sending food, non-perishable, from a non-alert area to a non-alert area.
Some here bringing water, food, and fuel with them. Others bringing their empty boats ready to fill them with supplies.
They've got perishable food, but they don't have potable water because the water treatment plant's down. They don't have, snacks and stuff that they could take when they're, out fighting the fires and stuff like that. So that's what was going. The rest of the North Shore needs pumps and hoses and stuff like that.
Cisco Foods saw Taggart's post and offered a full semi-tractor trailer unit full of water, non-perishable foods, and other essentials. The plan was to offload the truck here and have volunteers take the items across the lake to Anglemont in a convoy of private boats.
We have an amazing support group, so many boats and people delivering supplies. It's been incredible.
But the truck never made it to Blind Bay. 20 minutes before it was to pull in here, a setback.
The truck is in Salmon Arm, and Cisco Foods has been told to turn the truck around and send it back to Lake Country.
Organizers were told having boats on the water, however well-intentioned, could hamper firefighting efforts from above because aircraft would be unable to draw water from the lake or make drops.
In terms of resupply, EMCR, Regional Operations Center out of Kamloops, is working closely with local government EOCs. And if there were a need for assistance with that local government EOC, we would then provide that support. So we would just encourage concerned residents to get in touch with their local government.
At last word, the truck is in Chase, where it will sit until Cisco receives permits to enter Anglemont or a government request to do so. It has been a frustrating day, an emotional day, and an exhausting day, and they say they won't stop fighting until they get the goods where they need to be.
Elissa Carpenter, thanks. Near Kelowna, BC, fire crews are making progress on the McDougall Creek fire thanks to calmer winds and higher humidity. Those conditions over the past 48 hours have helped push back against the blaze. No more buildings have been destroyed, and rain is in the forecast. That's raising optimism, but it's no comfort to those whose homes have already burned down. Thousands of evacuees are wondering whether they have anything to go back to. In West Kelowna, crews are just getting into neighborhoods where homes are gone. Richard Zussman is there. Richard, what are you hearing?
As smoke drifts in and out of this valley, Donna, it's the first chance residents are having to see whether their home is standing or whether it's destroyed. And there will be more bad news on the way for some.
We just found out yesterday that our house is gone.
The heartbreak clear through Tracy Lambert's voice. She found out her West Kelowna property was destroyed by fire after being able to spot the rubble through the smoke.
So we could see that our property was all in ashes, and then a house beside us, our neighbor, their house was saved. So it was like the fire had a mind of its own.
After days of not knowing, there's now some clarity. West Kelowna Fire announcing Monday 50 structures have been lost, and the count is just beginning.
We've done the easy ones, but we're moving into the areas where the fire burned hottest. I described it as a hurricane. Trees pushed over by their roots. This is the kind of neighborhood that we're in today. So undoubtedly that number will grow higher.
Canada Task Force 1 leading the surveying work. This preliminary number does not include any structures lost in the city of Kelowna and surrounding areas.
These homes are gone. These are families who have lost everything. It is also probably news that is only going to get worse.
Residents in some West Kelowna neighborhoods have been informed no structures have been lost there, with weather continuing to be good for fighting fire.
Another good day to fight fire, with the exception of our visibility being impeded by the smoke locally here in the valley.
Those firefighters are here from across BC and around the world. And one touching story, Donna, one of the firefighters living here in BC becoming a Canadian citizen today. But instead of doing the ceremony at home, they did it here behind the fire lines on Zoom. Back to you.
That is dedication. Richard Zussman, thanks. It is another smoky day across Metro Vancouver. Environment Canada has issued an air quality advisory. It says it will remain in effect until there is a change in the weather. Well, meteorologist Christy Gordon is here to give us a look at what's forecast. Christy.
Donna, it has been more than a month since the Okanagan Valley, Shuswap region have had any substantial rain, and we really need days of rain to make an impact on the fire situation that we're dealing with. Nonetheless, we'll take what we can get. Here's a look. So I've put the fires of note on the map that you see here. We are going to see anywhere from 5 to 20 millimeters of rain. The problem with this rainfall is that it's not going to be widespread. We're talking about more showers or spotty conditions, and it comes with a risk of thunderstorms. So this will begin later today, continue into our Tuesday, and then begin to shift out of the region on Wednesday. But nonetheless, we're hoping for some moisture in those key areas. We had a few gusts out of the southeast today that helps to push the fires more towards the north. Winds are going to be lighter overnight, but then there's potential for a few gusts once again tomorrow afternoon. Thankfully, temperatures are going to stay low and the relative humidity will stay high. We have widespread thick smoke in through the southern interior today, a bit of improvement across Vancouver Island, and we are going to see that improvement shift into Metro Vancouver on Tuesday, but it's not going to last long. It looks like we're going to see a bit of wraparound smoke push back into the Metro Vancouver region on Wednesday, and we could see smoke all across southern and central portions of the province. Donna, back to you.
Global News senior meteorologist Christy Gordon, thanks. In the Northwest Territories, the fire near Yellowknife is, officials say, highly unlikely to reach the outskirts of the city in the next 3 days, but it will be weeks before anyone is allowed to return. About 20,000 people were ordered to leave last week. Many went to the small town of Behchokǫ. It's about an hour west of Yellowknife and more than a 6-hour drive from the nearest community in Alberta. As Jeff Semple reports, the scramble to safety has separated families, heightening anger and anxiety.
Fire crews in the north are moving from defense to offense.
But right now we're looking at going towards a direct attack strategy on the perimeter of that.
The fire remains 15 kilometers from Yellowknife, and it was feared it would hit the city on Saturday. But rain is turning the tide.
We're also looking at winds that'll be favorable for the most part. We're looking at, moving forward.
The good news is sparking some camping in forests nearby to begin considering a homecoming.
I'm bound and determined to get back as soon as I don't think the fire is going to get to the town. I think I'm going to try and get back, but whether they'll let us is another thing.
The mayor of Yellowknife says some residents who left are now trying to return. But unless they're essential workers, the police are stopping them.
yay, the weather's holding, and yay, we've got these fire breaks, but it's not yay, we get to come home yet. So really encouraging people, you're safe where you are, and we'll tell you when it's safe to return.
Waiting anxiously just down the highway is the small town of Behchokǫ, the closest community to Yellowknife, where the road is blocked. The community of Behchokǫ was hit with its own wildfire just a few weeks ago. Take a look at what's left of this home. At that time, people here fled down the road to Yellowknife. Well, now people from Yellowknife are taking refuge here in Behchokǫ. Katrina Knockleby is one of them.
We seem to be the poster children for natural disasters.
Behchokǫ is home to the Klecho people from the Dene First Nation. Their MLA says many of their community members are now missing.
It's a nightmare. I mean, there was no communication with the indigenous leaders.
Janeway Yellen Armstrong says in the scramble to follow evacuation orders, some of their elders and homeless people were rushed onto planes and sent to cities across Western Canada.
Especially with the language barriers. Yeah, we're afraid for them, and there's nobody there with them.
She says even children in care homes were sent away, their parents left with no word on their whereabouts.
They want to know where their children are, and then they're saying this feels like a 60 scoops because they send their children out. Yellowknife should have done a better job, dealing with this, with the patient, with the homelessness, with the vulnerable people, and it didn't happen.
I asked the mayor of Yellowknife about those concerns. She says the territory oversaw the evacuation, but that no adults were put on those planes without their consent, though the same can't be said for children and seniors in care homes. The mayor says anyone in the territory looking for information on a missing loved one should call 811. Donna?
All right, Jeff Semple in Behchokǫ, Northwest Territories. Thanks. Prime Minister Justin Trudeau has taken a shot at social media giant Meta, which owns Facebook and Instagram. He says it is inconceivable it continues to block local news as dangerous wildfires rage across much of the country.
But right now, in an emergency situation, where up-to-date local information is more important than ever, Facebook's putting corporate profits ahead of people's safety, ahead of supporting quality local journalism.
The Prime Minister is leading a retreat of his cabinet ministers in Prince Edward Island. He says the Federal Incident Response Group is meeting to discuss the wildfires, and housing and affordability are also expected to be a focus. Mackenzie Gray is in Charlottetown tonight.
Very cool. Their victories Justin Trudeau wants to show off.
Hey, what's your name?
$10 a day daycare, a signature Liberal policy, but it's increasingly overshadowed by inflation and housing concerns, leading the Prime Minister to make a political pivot.
There's much more we need to do on housing, and we're continuing to step up with record investments and partnerships with municipalities and provinces.
Plans for those new partnerships being drawn up in Charlottetown as Trudeau's new look cabinet meets to strategize on the political path forward. One potential change, capping the number of international student visas issued to reduce housing demand.
The reality is we've got temporary immigration programs that were never designed to see such explosive growth in such a short period of time.
Trudeau's chief rival, Conservative leader Pierre Poilievre, won't say what he'll do with immigration, but continued his relentless attacks over the cost of living.
I think Justin Trudeau would love Canadians to blame immigrants for the housing prices that he has doubled. But immigrants are just following the rules that he put in place.
Poilievre's message resonating with Canadians as the Conservatives had taken a 10-point lead over the Liberals.
Every generation, from Gen Z, the youngest generation, to say baby boomers, the Liberals are losing them all.
And it's not just a political reset, but also a personal one for the Prime Minister, speaking for the first time about his separation from Sophie Gregoire Trudeau.
First, I want to thank all the people who've reached out over the past number of weeks with warm wishes, with personal messages, with personal stories that have been just wonderful and positive.
The Liberals won't be announcing any new policies here in Charlottetown, but they will be hearing from experts and academics tomorrow, Donna, on how to revamp their political plan.
And Mackenzie, Justin Trudeau has told the party he intends to lead the Liberals into the next election, and the Conservatives have launched an expensive ad campaign to raise the profile of their leader, Pierre Poilievre. What do we know about how they are both perceived by voters right now?
Well, frankly, Donna, both leaders are not particularly well liked. Let's start off with the Prime Minister. 51% of Canadians have a negative view of him, according to fresh data from Abacus that came out today. 20% of Canadians do have a favorable view of him, but a lot of the folks who've left him have been millennials. Issues with housing and affordability there really have them looking towards Pierre Poilievre. And Mr. Poilievre's viewed as more of a polarizing candidate. You either love him or you don't like him, and right now his negatives are fairly high at 37%. I think that ties in with what you were talking about in your intro about the idea of a new advertising campaign for Mr. Poilievre. $3 million the Conservatives have spent to try and soften his image a little bit. But in the end, Donna, Canadian politics isn't always about likability. Just look at Jagmeet Singh and the NDP. He's been the most liked Canadian federal politician for years, but he's still the leader of the fourth party.
All right, Mackenzie Gray in Charlottetown tonight. Thanks. Massive cleanup efforts underway in the southwestern U.S. Coming up, flash floods and an earthquake rattle the nerves of millions. In Southern California, cleanup is underway after Hillary hit, the first tropical storm there in over 8 decades. Rainfall records were broken across several desert communities. Rescuers had to pull people from swollen rivers, and many roads were flooded. At one point, the interstate that runs east and west of Palm Springs was shut down. Jackson Prosco reports on California's deluge.
With incredible power, floodwaters swept across some of the driest parts of the United States. California's Death Valley received more than a year's worth of rain in just a few hours.
We've had storms before, but never anything quite this windy and rainy at the same time.
The first time in nearly a century that a tropical storm made landfall in the region. Hillary sent torrential rain far inland to places like Las Vegas. In Palm Springs, where a local emergency was declared, roads were covered by water. For a time, the entire city was cut off from the main interstate.
All that started within an hour or two, and then just kept piling up, and the water keeps coming further back up the street.
In San Diego, nearly a dozen people experiencing homelessness had to be rescued from an encampment in a normally dry riverbed.
Our swiftwater rescue teams, our lifeguards and firefighters had to go out into that river.
And then things got worse. Just as Los Angeles felt Hillary's power, a 5.1 earthquake shook the city. Like the storm, the moderate quake rattled nerves.
The Los Angeles Fire Department so far has reported no damage or injuries in the city.
While Hillary is a storm for the record books, there is an unexpected upside. After a season of exceptional rain and snow, usually parched California is now free of extreme drought conditions for the first time in years. Jackson Prosco, Global News.
The American President Joe Biden is touring the destruction on the Hawaiian island of Maui. The windswept fires there were the deadliest in modern American history. 850 people are still missing, and more than 100 people are confirmed dead in the Lahaina fire. Biden is expected to be greeted with anger and questions over the government's response. Still ahead, Saudi Arabia accused of killing migrants at the border. A troubling report says guards at the border of Saudi Arabia and Yemen regularly shoot and kill migrants trying to enter Saudi Arabia. Human Rights Watch says Saudi border guards have killed hundreds of migrants, including women and children who attempted to enter the kingdom along its mountainous border with Yemen. The 73-page report contains graphic testimony from migrants who say guards used explosive weapons and shot others at close range. It compiled testimony from 38 Ethiopians who tried to cross the border last year. Saudi authorities deny their guards have killed any migrants. In Ecuador, voters will head back to the polls in October for a runoff election. No candidate received enough support to be declared winner after yesterday's vote. Left-wing candidate Luisa Gonzalez won about 33%. Daniel Noboa, son of a prominent banana businessman, was the surprise second-place candidate with 24% of the vote. The election was marred by the assassination of an anti-corruption candidate earlier this month. Sustainable shipping next. Wind Wings, a bold plan for cargo ships to sail into the future. Cargo ships are an essential part of keeping the world supplied. Thousands of them are operating right now, but only one is making headlines. It set out from China this morning, and what's notable is not the cargo it's carrying, but how it's powered. It's been retrofitted with massive sails. As Mike Armstrong explains, it's intended to help shipping clean up its act.
It's a little less impressive docked, but on the open seas, the vessel, the Pyxis Ocean, opens up. Its sails are a bit of a harkening back to when cargo moved around the world before diesel and before steam, harnessing the power of the wind. The people behind it admit there's a bit of back to the future.
The Pyxis Ocean is a pilot project that we've been working on for many years with many partners.
The maritime shipping industry accounts for close to 3% of global CO2 emissions. Using wind to add power could cut that down. But what makes it even more appealing for the industry is what it could mean for costs.
On these vessels, we're saving 1.5 tons a day, so 30, even 40% of fuel consumption, which is a significant step in the right direction.
Now, the Pyxis Ocean is 5 years old. The wind wings, as they're called, were added. They were designed in the UK and built and installed in China. They're 37.5 meters tall and 10 meters across. When at sea, they pivot and rotate depending on wind angle, and at port, they collapse and move out of the way to give access to the ship's hatches. The fact they can be added to ships may give the technology the potential to go mainstream.
Certainly on bulk carriers and tankers, we can see a large proportion of new builds and a huge number of retrofits in the coming years.
The shipping industry is looking at other fuels that are less polluting than what vessels use now, but so far they've all been prohibitively expensive, which leaves sails as an even more interesting option. Mike Armstrong, Global News.
And that is Global National for this Monday. I'm Donna Friesen. Tonight's Your Canada is Forshoe on Cape Breton Island, Nova Scotia. We'd love to see your Canada. Please email it to viewers@globalnational.com. And thanks for watching. Hope to see you here again tomorrow. Bye-bye.